Welcome back to another episode of the Lender Podcast. I'm Bryce Matheson, and as always, this episode is brought to you by Lender. Lender is a loan management software tool designed to help you with every aspect of your business, from origination to servicing to payoff. Lender helps you with document generation, helps you with collecting monthly payments, dispersing monthly payments to your investors, taking in new loan applications, giving your borrowers a portal that they can log into, giving your investors a portal that they can log into. Pretty much every aspect of everything that you do inside of your lending business can be done and facilitated through Lender. You can check that out by going to joinlender.com. That's LENDR, joinlender.com. Now, onto the episode. Okay, let's talk briefly about what I think is probably quite literally one of the biggest changes that we are making to Holbrook Capital, our lending entity, in 2025. So if you go back in time to way back in the beginning, I think it was episode 4, we talk about whether or not you should collect monthly payments. And I'm going to give kind of a recap around what we were doing at the time, why I was so in favor of not collecting monthly payments, and kind of, what some of those changes are that we're changing in 2025 and moving forward. So going back in episode 4, I talked about a lot of the pros and cons between collecting monthly payments. In the lending industry, it is very common to collect monthly payments. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say probably 80 to 90% of all the lenders that I interact with do collect monthly payments. Now, I, for a very long time, have been pro non-monthly payments, and not because they're bad or negative, but I just would put myself in the shoes of the borrower, and I would think to myself, okay, what did I really appreciate when I was doing my own flipping, and what did I really like and appreciate? So for those of you who don't know, for about 6 or 7 years, we flipped almost exclusively. That's all we did. We were just flipping homes. And I kind of modeled our lending after the hard money lender that we used, because what they would do is they would not collect monthly payments, and I really appreciated it. And so how it would work was we would go to them, we would ask for a loan, pretty standard, they would underwrite the deal, look at the pictures, look at the numbers, make sure that everything made sense. They would issue us the loan, and then they wouldn't charge any monthly interest payments, and all the interest would just accrue, and they would even wrap the points into the loan, and it would all just pay off on the back end. And obviously, as a borrower, I really appreciated that. I loved that, if I was doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 projects simultaneously, I wouldn't have to come out of pocket with a bunch of cash. And think about it in the first place. If a borrower is coming to you as a borrower on a flip project or whatever it may be, chances are they don't have a lot of money in the first place. If they did, they would go somewhere else or just not use a lender altogether, and they would just pay cash for the project. And on top of that, when you're doing 6, 7, 8 projects simultaneously, those monthly interest payments can get pretty steep. For example, say you're doing a $400,000 renovation project, chances are your monthly payment on that is going to be around $4,000. It's very expensive. So multiply that by 8 to 10 projects, and now you've got $40,000 a month that you're paying out in monthly payments for these projects. And so it comes with some risk for the borrower, because now you don't have as much cash flow, and cash flow is the name of the game. Initially, when we got into lending about 3 years ago, I just modeled that same model after the same lender that we use, because I really appreciated that. Now, when I would go to all of these different events and different things like this, I would look around and I would see all of these different lenders around me, and they were all collecting monthly payments. And intuitively, I get it, right? Obviously, it makes sense to collect payments now, but in my mind, it was really just, A, let me set up expectations with my investors so that they're not expecting monthly payments. And B, it was just kind of like a managerial overhead, because now I have multiple accounting periods and I have to do bookkeeping and stuff like this every single month. Whereas before, I would just issue a loan and a loan would pay off, and I would have 2 accounting periods, and that was it. And so I liked that model. Now, fast forward to 2025, and I'm sure you've guessed it by now, we are now transitioning over into a monthly payment model. So all of our loans that we issue beginning January 1st moving forward are going to have monthly payments. All of the loans before January 1st, we'll let those finish up. We'll do the accrual method, and then after that, we'll move forward, and any new loans that we issue will be monthly payers. You're probably asking, why are we doing this? And it's taken a lot of thought on my end on why we're doing this, but I've come to realize a couple different things. The biggest thing is, now I'm a lender, and this may sound kind of shitty, but we get to call the shots. You get to run your business however you want. And that's the nice thing about being a lender is if a borrower comes to you and they don't like the terms or the way that you operate or the way that you do things, cool, they can go and find somebody else. With this recent kind of change and shift in the market, we have found that we have gone longer and longer periods without receiving payoffs. So things are sitting on the market and they're sitting on the market longer. And so it's taking longer for us to receive payoffs. Investors are taking longer to see interest disbursements. And it's starting to take a toll on our business. And the thing that I realized is we are taking on all of the risk unnecessarily for no reason. The borrowers get all the upside and we get all the downside. So for example, the net asset value on that particular property, how we're doing it currently, because that interest just slowly accrues, the risk gets higher and higher the longer that loan goes on. I realize that yes, the property may be getting flipped and so the ARV may be going up over time. That's true as well. But when you think about it, we are shouldering all of the risk really for no reason. And when a borrower comes to us, they should be shouldering the majority of the risk, not us. We want to make sure that our capital is protected and that the capital of our investors is always protected. And so because of that, we're now going to start doing monthly payments. Previously, when we had a market that was a little bit hotter and projects were paying off a lot more consistently, we would have a lot more churn. And so we would have a lot of payments going out to investors. And it would seem like maybe once every week or every other week, we would have a payoff. And so there's just a lot of there's a lot of turnover. There are a lot of new loans going out and a lot of loans paying off. It was really great. Investors were getting payments and we were getting payments. But over the last 3 or 4 months, that has slowed down significantly. I don't know if it's holidays. I don't know if it's, having to do with the market. Probably a combination of the two, but things have been a lot slower. And so because of that, we have had to kind of pull out of our cash reserves to keep our own, personal finances afloat, just because we're dependent on this business for our livelihood and to put food on the table for our family. And I don't say that to sound pessimistic or we're not doing well. We're doing just fine. But not having a paycheck for 3 or 4 months, that's a little bit tougher. And I realize a lot of people couldn't even do that. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. And so, after 3 or 4 months, you're like, it'd be really nice to get paid. The other thing that I was thinking was we had a conversation with a lender who's been in the space for 30 plus years. He said, when you have a capital investor come to you and they say, give you $100,000, we'll just assume very simply 12% interest. We actually pay less than that, but just for easy numbers, $100,000, 12% interest, that's roughly $1,000 a month, right? What he said was you have a brand new capital investor, they give you $100,000. The first month that they get their interest paid out to them, it's great. It's a nice to have, but it was kind of like a surprise, right? They weren't dependent on it. Then the next month, they're like, okay, this is really great. Month 3, they start to become dependent on that income. And then month 4, they've now increased and expanded their lifestyle. They've now gone out and they've bought, a new car. And so now they have a $700 a month car payment. And so not only have they increased their standard of living, but they're now dependent on that income, which means they can't pull that $100,000 from you because they need that monthly cash flow to now maintain their lifestyle. When he said that, he essentially said it becomes addicting. It becomes a drug. And then they can't pull those funds with you. And I don't say that in the sense that we're not going to give their money back. Of course we were if they were to ask for it. But they become addicted to the cash flow more than the initial principal that they invested with you. And that really stuck with me. And where we're in capital raising mode and we're trying to raise more capital for deals, that is really important to me because I want investors to A, be very satisfied with the service that we're offering, but B, we are relying on that so that we can issue loans to our borrowers. So when he said it becomes addicting, I was like, that makes sense. And so it's become a shift in my mindset that, okay, now rather than having this just one accrual payoff period, we'll now just have monthly payments and we will use that to obviously disperse to our investors. We'll take a yield spread on that and we'll get more churn and we'll also receive more regular paychecks. And money now is always better than money later. So am I kind of going back on what I said initially? I mean, not really. Businesses grow and change and they're fluid and ever living. And so no, I think just as we're moving forward in this business and we're learning and growing and just kind of molding as time goes on, our business is adjusting and changing too. And overall, I think it's going to be a much better operation. And also, I'm not necessarily opposed to becoming more aligned with the kind of the industry standard way of doing things. Sure, it's fine if you want to be kind of outside the box. I don't know that I really want to do that. And on kind of the side of building out Lender, the software tool that we have, it's absolutely advantageous for me to build out that software the same way that the majority of our lenders are going to use that software, which is collecting monthly payments. And just as a quick little recap, this is how, typically speaking, monthly payments work. So for example, let's say that we close a loan for February 11th. The origination date on that loan is February 11th. What we're going to do is at title, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to net fund that loan, meaning like, say, for example, easy loan, $100,000. We're going to charge 3 points. We are going to only send a wire for $97,000, and we're going to take those $3,000 and move it to our business operating account, and those are our points. That's our income. And then on top of that, we're also going to pre-collect prorated interest for the days in February. So from February 11th all the way until February 28th. I don't know exactly what that dollar amount is off the top of my head, but we're going to collect that interest, that's prepaid interest, because the borrower's first payment is going to be on April 1st. In the mortgage industry, payments are made in arrears. So as the interest accrues for the whole month of March, you make your payment on April 1st, and that covers the interest that was accrued for the month of March. So again, the loan closes February 11th. We are going to collect points, any other fees, underwriting fee, doc prep fee, whatever it may be. We'll also collect prorated prepaid interest, and that will cover the monthly accrual period of all the days remaining in February. And then the first payment, the first monthly payment, will come out on April 1st, and that will cover the interest that was accrued for the month of March. Now, both of that prepaid interest as well as the monthly payments are divided up and paid to capital investors or to ourselves as a yield spread. Now, how we do it is slightly different because we have that fund model. And so the individual payments are not necessarily like carved up. So for example, let's say you get a $1,000 monthly payment. Typically speaking, you would pay like 9% of that to your investor. So they would get $900. And then, you're keeping that yield spread or whatever it may be. That's, just your servicing fee. We do it slightly different in the sense that all of the income that we make goes into the fund and it's pooled. And then we give our investors their percentage return pref or their preferred return first. And then we keep whatever's left. So whether you're doing the co-lending model or the fund model, it essentially works the same way. It's just we kind of pool those funds and we pay it out on a recurring monthly basis. And I actually really like that because it just makes accounting easier. Like I just know we pay this out every single month to investors. Some investors choose to reinvest it, and then we get to keep whatever is left over. So I really, really, really like that model. So all that to say, we are changing the way that we are doing things in 2025 moving forward. We may hate it. I don't think that will be the case, but I'm excited and anxious to see how it goes. We've already done 2 or 3 loans so far that have this now monthly payer model. And I really like the net funding model. I really like the fact that I'm getting paid when the loan closes rather than wrapping those points into the loan and then having it all pay off in one lump sum. It is nice to get really big paychecks. So for example, we had a project that paid off yesterday and our income on that was significant. It was around $15,000 even after paying out investors just because the interest accrues and then we get a large lump sum. So that is pretty nice, but moving forward, we'll see how that differs and what we think. So that's it for this week's episode. I'm curious to hear your comments. Do you guys do monthly payers? I assume you do, or do you have it all, accrue and pay off on the back end? If you ever need to get in contact with me, that email is podcast@joinlender.com, podcast@joinlender.com. I'd love to hear from our listeners and hear what you're doing. So until next week, that's all. Thanks.